Guru Nation, we are live. This is gonna be a really interesting episode live stream. We're gonna get into one of my favorite products out there for sites. I think it's like super site centric. I used to be very anti eSource, mainly because my experiences were from sponsor mandated eSource solutions, and I didn't like those. I was like an angry child that's being forced to eat veggies. So I thought, why in my right mind would I pay for this? Like voluntarily. But I've messed around with it over the years, and now it's a critical. Our site, Yuma Clinical Trials, depends on CRIO, and we'll even get into some sponsor side functionality later because I think there's some paradigm changing, game changing functions. But before we get into all that, okay, this is for you career seekers, for you guys seeking adventure or diversity in your career. Business development is something that's not discussed enough in this industry. I talk about it from a site perspective. You always need to fill your pipeline. Inato, shout out to Inato, one of our other sponsors. They do biz dev for you for free. My other company, the SCS, we help sites, but like biz dev is much bigger and broader than just site. There's a huge segment of this industry that focuses on biz dev and sales, and you see them at all the conferences, and they're from tech vendors, just like Mia. So we've got Mia Castañero. She's the biz dev manager at CRIO, and we're gonna get into CRIO demo, but I wanted to focus the beginning of this interview on biz dev as a career. How did you get into that? And first of all, thank you so much, Mia, for coming on this live stream.
No, I'm definitely happy to be here. I never saw myself being in business development and being in sales when I was growing up. I always wanted to work directly in healthcare. What avenue of healthcare, I wasn't totally sure about that. But I got introduced to clinical research. That was my first job, was working at a site. So got experience hands-on with the systems of conducting clinical trials. I should have known earlier on that I was interested in sales because I am quite a competitive person. So when I was at site and I got reimbursed like an extra $20 for every patient I could enroll to a study, that was my sweet spot. That was my favorite part of being on site, was the recruitment and enrollment aspect of it. And then from the site, I took kind of a diagonal move. I went to work for a large healthcare company. I worked for Optum, which is part of United Health Group. So very different from the site world. But I worked in sales there for United Health Group. And then following that, CRIO had reached out to me. They had seen my background on both the site side and in sales, gave me more information about the product that they were selling in the market. And as soon as I learned that CRIO existed and that paper charts and paper binders and Excel spreadsheets weren't the only option of how to conduct clinical trials at the site, it was a no-brainer for me. Jumped on board at CRIO, and it's been a perfect fit.
How did you like the site side of, because a lot of people get into sites on the sales side, recruitment side.
Mm-hmm.
What were your experiences there?
I loved being on site. Definitely the two things that I miss most are just the patient interactions. Every single day, getting to spend time with the patients, assist them in the conduct of the clinical trial. And then I also miss like kind of the nerdy research part of it, like actually getting insight into some of these new potential drugs that are making its way through the trial process. Definitely miss those two pieces. There's give and takes of working at a site versus now being able to work in sales at a vendor. One being able to work remotely. It's lovely if I can just run downstairs and grab a cup of coffee, run downstairs, make my lunch. So there's definitely pluses and minuses to both being in person on a site and working for a vendor company, certainly.
Mm-hmm. So when you first discovered CRIO, how did CRIO get on your radar? Actually, was it through Optum?
It was not through my previous role at Optum. They only got on my radar because they reached out to me directly to recruit me for a business development position. So they reached out. I did a little research on the company to figure out what they were selling. I wasn't looking for a new role at the time, but once I dove into the website and understood what they were offering in the market, I was very intrigued. So again, wasn't really looking for a new role, but I was like, I'm interested to learn more about this. So I had initial conversations with the CRIO team and with Raymond, who I know you're friends with. And as soon as I recognized, oh, those paper charts that I was having to manage and all the documentation and the wet ink signatures, that is no longer required. And there's an entire solution for sites that's end-to-end technology to be able to conduct the trials within CRIO. So I was definitely interested in immediately and then jumped on board here. And now here at CRIO, my role as a business development manager is working with any and all sites that are interested in learning more about the technology solution that we offer. So I'm able to have discussions with these sites, learn more about their current operations and workflows, show them how the CRIO system works to see if it would be a good fit for their site. So really just a lot of education about the
Mm.
technology that we offer within the industry.
So you do, and we'll get into the CRIO right now. But so at the site, you were. It sounds like on your way towards being a coordinator, or maybe you were without the title, or.
Correct.
uh,
Did a lot of coordinator similar activities. I believe my official title is like clinical trial assistant. So at the time, helping out the coordinators with
Interesting.
ETMS technology assistance, recruitment, scheduling, visit completion, data collection, all of that. A little bit of everything.
I like that. See, guys and gals, the site. Like, if you want to get started and you don't know exactly where you want to start in research, like the site, I think is the best option. I'm biased, obviously. I don't know
I'd
any
be biased
other.
as well. I agree. Mhm.
But you can go look what Mia does, okay? And okay, so you deal with a lot of sites that are interested but haven't switched over yet.
Mhm. That's correct.
What are the top 3 primary reservations for sites to do eSource?
Absolutely. There's several. The first one I'll touch on is misconceptions within the industry. I hear very often from sites that e-source, e-regulatory, e-signatures, they're not allowed. They're just certainly not allowed by the FDA. They're not allowed by a specific sponsor said name. They're not allowed by a specific CRO said name. So there's a lot of misconceptions about the control that the site has over the documentation that they're using for their clinical trials. So, of course, it's up to the site in terms of how the source data is collected, whether that's on paper or if that's on eSource, as long as the system that they're choosing to use is compliant with the applicable industry regulations, which, of course, CRIO is. So, I do have to do a lot of re education around CRIO from the compliance regulatory aspect. That is certainly.
That's got to be annoying, no? How do you not lose your cool?
I don't lose my cool because it used to be me. So I used to be the site paper. Oh, it has to be done this way. The source is always on paper. I thought so. I was re-educated at some point. So I try to carry across remembrance of that in these conversations, even though sometimes they may be on repeat.
Who's the biggest pushback? Like who's the biggest resistance come from? Is it the senior coordinator? Is it the site owner? The PI? I'm imagining the PIs are rarely involved in these unless they're the site owners.
It depends on the setup of the site, whether it's a smaller site or maybe the investigator, sometimes the owner, and they're heavily involved. Or if we're going down more towards the AMC route or some of the larger site networks, the investigators might not be as involved in the decision making process. Um, the biggest barrier from this site in terms of adopting CRIO technology is not a specific individual. It's more so the mentality of I don't want to change any of my processes and workflows. If you've been on the site, you've been conducting clinical trials for 30 years, it's always been on paper. You even had experience with the paper CRFs at one point in time. There's sometimes a barrier to wanting to change workflows. Um,
Yeah. I imagine that this is why when we started Yuma Clinical Trials, July 2021, actually, so we're almost 2 years old. Um, there was not an option. Like we were gonna use CRIO from the beginning. My staff, they're all were brand new to research, and they didn't know any better. I knew from my previous site that it's tough to get
mhm.
experienced CRCs to convert to anything. Like once you have your system down, You don't want to convert, even if it's more efficient. Even if you show them, hey, it's more efficient here.
Mhm.
They're just like human beings have a strong resistance to change.
That's correct. Try to show them those efficiencies. So, okay, if you make the transition from paper to electronic source, it's going to eliminate XYZ steps for you on the
Yeah.
site and as a coordinator to hopefully save you some time. And usually, when you recognize the elimination of some manual workflows, that's when it starts to click for people and realize there's a much better way of conducting clinical trials.
Yeah, and Raymond said it best. Like we actually have he said CRIO's like different levels of yoga. You know, you can start at a beginner. You don't have to do the full stretch or all the poses. I don't do yoga, so I don't know what that is, but it's true. Like even now, 2 years into it, and I've actually used CRIO longer than 2 years, but at least at this site, we're not even using the full functionality of CRIO. We're gonna eventually get into it, but
Mm-hmm.
we have some PIs that still write their progress notes on paper, but we upload them to CRIO as progress notes. So there's like hybrid solutions are possible. You can CRIO gives the site the flexibility. This is the main, for me at least, the main um, feature that I did not understand because my previous eSource experience were sponsor mandated eSource, where you don't have any flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
CRIO gives you the flexibility, and if you there's ways to correct your mistakes, and there's ways to not get in trouble. Like a lot of coordinators are afraid, oh, I'm going to get in trouble. There's ways where this was really built site with sites in mind. So that's something that I think is important to share.
Correct. It's not one more technology solution added to your stack for one study, for one sponsor, when you already have 45 to manage. A lot of sites are going the way of a fully site adopted solution. So, usually with CRIO, if you have the modules, whether it's eSource, eConsent, eReg, or CTMS, it's one solution, one username and password that you can use to manage all of your trials. So, our goal is to eliminate at least a little bit of that different vendor burden by having all of the solutions built into one system that you could use for all studies.
Okay, so maybe we asked for top three, but I was gonna I was gonna pivot that question a little. Does price ever come up as an objection, or that's I would imagine that's like later down the list, not the first concerns.
Absolutely, it comes up. In terms of pricing, we have built it in a way that it matches exactly how sites receive revenue. So you're obviously reimbursed for visits being completed as well as some types of procedures. So the CRIO system matches that. So ultimately, it comes out to be a very, very small percentage of the site's overall revenue.
Okay.
Mhm.
And any other pushback before we get into this the demo, like from sites that we haven't discussed?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I would say the top three are misconceptions within the industry around regulations and compliance, site individuals, resistance to change, and then as well as pricing. Those are three that I hear very often
Yeah.
conversations about.
And the pricing I understand because when you're a brand new site, there's no revenue. And the I think the best time to start CRIO is if you're a brand new site, like it's a no brainer.
You
There
never
is
have
there
to
are
worry.
ways.
You never have to ship anything to Iron Mountain. It's great to start from
Oh,
the beginning.
I love that. I love that. The archiving, like you're really paying for the archiving, and I guess like the feature, like when you start the study, you create the study, and then you're basically paying for the archiving, and that's where the cost could be burdensome is when you start a new study, and it's going to impact the newer sites more heavily than the established sites. Established sites won't have problem with the money. I mean, even my site, we're not even 2 years old, and
Mhm.
we're beyond that point now. As long as we keep randomizing,
Yeah.
which CRIO should help you do, and we're gonna get into it. But let's go through some questions before we do it because we won't have time for questions till later. So Chorus wants to work at the site level. Chorus, um, hit me up. What
Mhm.
does CRIO have? This is from Diana. What does CRIO have as added value compared to other companies that offer eSource? And also, which limitations have sites noticed from CRIO? This is a good question. I
Mhm.
don't have experience with other vendors. I'm brand loyal. maybe to a fault, but I've been happy with CRIO. I haven't had any issues. But do you have any um, answers here?
Yeah, so for eSource, again, most of the eSource vendors that exist within the industry have been created by sponsors and CROs, and they're typically pushed down by the sponsors and CROs for particular trials. Now, with that eSource, it was not built with the site workflows in mind. So it can include the data collection for the CRF fields, but of course, at the site, there's additional fields, procedures that you need to capture for your site workflows and your SOPs. So with CRIO's eSource, it's fully customizable for the site to add in every single question procedure that they need to capture for the study. It doesn't just have to include the core CRF fields. So it was built with the site's workflow in mind. It's very user-friendly from sites. That's a major difference between CRIO and some of the other vendors that are offered within the industry.
Yeah, one of the things I would add here is like when the company is relatively new, CRIO is no longer like a startup really, but um, you look at the jockey um, who's on the horse, who's riding the horse, and Ray. I've known Ray. Ray's a site owner,
Mm-hmm.
so like you got to look at that early team, and even now, CRIO is just staffed with former site level people. Not every eSource, eReg company, they're trying, but they don't have like that in the makeup of the organization, and it starts from the top. It Ray's a site owner, like former site owner for years. He created this because he had this problem early on.
Correct. And
Um,
anyone's not familiar, Raymond is our CEO and co-founder, owned the site before starting the CRIO.
yeah, he's awesome. Okay, so CRIO onboarding is quite interactive using it. Changing systems is a major concern for most. They need to adjust to something new. What are the limitations sites have notified with CRIO? Did we discuss that yet?
No, I don't believe so. Limitations that sites have noticed from CRIO. As Dan mentioned, we are relatively new to the industry. So CRIO kicked off in 2016, so just about 7 years ago. Now, since that time, we have built a full technology stack for sites, but we're continuing to develop and innovate from there. So certainly, it's as there is with any technology solution, there's some limitations. So we certainly will take feedback from our client sites, prioritize that, and build that into a roadmap. So we're continuing to improve the product, honestly, every single week.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to think of an answer to this. Maybe I'll think of something when we do the demo.
Let me jump back to it.
Yeah, and CRIO's always making improvements. We have like these quarterly calls with our rep, and they're
Hmm.
always asking us for feedback. And my CRCs give better feedback than I do, but they try to implement these things. Okay, so let's get into the demo.
All right.
I'll learn some stuff here too, guys, for sure. I'm probably using 60% of its functionality. We're not using the recruitment aspect. I'm using the financial aspect. Here we go. Here's the demo. Let me take off the branding so we can see. All right, take it away, Mia.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so jumping into the CRIO system here, as I previously mentioned, it is a full technology suite for sites. So that does include eSource as well as eConsent. We have eRegulatory and a full CTMS or clinical trial management system, which includes the tools for scheduling, recruitment, financial management, and then reporting for detailed analytics. So you can start to see some of those tools up here at the top. Of course, all of your studies can be managed directly within the CRIO platform. You can see all of your subjects or participants. You can manage their schedule. You could overview tasks and to-dos. We provide a number of different recruitment tools. Again, financial management tool for the site to track all of their incoming revenue and costs. We have eReg for document management. And then last but not least, the reporting for analytics. So for today, I'm going to focus on just the eSource solution. Again, it is a very robust end-to-end solution, but with time constraints, I'm just going to walk through eSource today. And I have scheduled a visit for today. So as a site, you jump in here, you have this lovely home dashboard that lists out all of your remaining visits and to-dos for that day. When you start a visit, so if I have Dustin Johnson coming in for a visit today and I start it within CRIO, it's going to pull up the entire source for me to complete here electronically. So all of the forms or procedures and questions that are required to be collected according to the protocol can be built into this section here on the left side. And of course, this is fully customizable. I have just uploaded a couple of example procedures for our time today to walk through and show you some of the features. But of course, this is going to be built specifically to the study. In terms of building a study, I can get into some more details about that later, but I do want to mention that this can either be built by the site themselves. We would teach you and train you how to build source electronically. Or Dan, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it yet, our study design services. Have you had the opportunity?
Yeah, I just learned about that. We've been designing it ourselves,
Mhm.
but I'm probably going to take advantage of that for our next study coming up here soon.
Wonderful. We have an entire team of study designers here at CRIO that in the event you would like us to build any studies or any source for you, we can do so. And we have a list of the studies that are already available as well.
Yeah, the benefit of that, guys, is like garbage in, garbage out. So if you design, I mean, with paper, you run into the same issue. Someone has to design your paper source. Very rarely do sponsors provide you with the paper source. So the source is a flow for how that visit's supposed to go. So as long as it's created properly, you're not going to run into issues as far as protocol compliance. At least you shouldn't.
Mhm.
If it's not created correctly, you run into those issues. But you have the same thing with paper. It's just this is a way to streamline it. And for us, I think it's important as a growing site to make sure our source is correct, because in the past we've created it and then when we've noticed issues we've modified it, but that's after the fact, after the monitor or one of us. We have QA people too that that maybe they notice something, and you can customize. It's fairly simple. I'm not good at tech at all, and I figured out how to move things around. Once it's created, I can move things around like no problem. It's very intuitive from that perspective.
Um, okay, and so this CRIO system has been adopted by over 2,000 sites. So we have sites all across the US, all across the world that are using this technology to conduct the trials. And why have they adopted this system? I just want to highlight a couple of the value points. First and foremost, quality of data. As Dan mentioned, this is going to ensure protocol compliance because it has built-in edit checks. So if yourself or anyone in your team is collecting the data and they accidentally make a deviation, they plug in the wrong time date format, something is out of range, patient's in the wrong position, any of those situations, it's going to pop up and let you know on the spot that an error did occur, so you can go ahead and make that adjustment and avoid making the deviation up front. Another example of why sites are adopting eSource is the ability to centralize and standardize all operations. So, of course, the alternative to eSource is typically paper source. If you have all of your data written on paper, you then have to physically be in person on site in order to review that paper. Investigator has to receive the stack of papers in order to review and sign electronically. For sites, whether it's a one site standalone practice or site networks, SMOs, any and all of the above, having all of the data and all of the studies electronically allows you to standardize processes, allows individuals to work from home. Investigators can review data from anywhere. If you have multiple sites, you can start to centralize QC processes, EDC entry processes. It just gives you a lot of flexibility into your business structure. Those are just two quick examples. Now to walk through the eSource visit here, I do want to kind of show you how it works. So with the standard vitals here, if I'm walking through and collecting the data for this particular subject, a couple examples of how we can make the site staff and coordinators workflow easier is by automating any calculations. Calculations can be simple conversions, temperature, BMI. It can be very complex scales and scores as well. So anything just to make it easier so you don't have to do the math, take out a calculator or the smartphone in order to do it. Couple examples of the edit checks built in as well. If the protocol stated in this example that the patient should take blood pressure after 5 minutes in a sitting position, if you're going through the visit, you accidentally forget patient needs to be in sitting, you put them in supine position, it's going to let you know right away that is the wrong position and ask you to change the patient to the sitting position. So when you receive that alert, you can say, oh, whoops, wrong position, change the patient to a sitting position. Again, avoid that deviation up front. Couple other examples. If you're new to clinical research, you'll quickly learn there's a very specific time date format in which all of the data should be collected in. Sometimes it's challenging to memorize up front. Instead, within CRIO, you can just click now and it would automatically create that time and date for you. Now, if you remember from the patient position time, I'm supposed to wait 5 minutes to collect the vitals. If I don't wait 5 minutes, I'm rushing through, going too fast. Again, it's going to recognize that 5 minutes did not elapse and flag me. A couple other examples, ranges. If there was something out of range, you accidentally plug in a 300 systolic blood pressure. Hopefully that's not right, or the patient's very, very unwell. In this example, it's going to flag me that the principal investigator should assess before I can move forward. And then lastly, obviously, paper source can't jump out at you, flag you, let you know fields are being left blank, but CRIO can. So it's going to kindly give me multiple alerts here. If I forget to finish the blood pressure, it'll let me know the first time here. If I continue to move forward, it'll let me know again next to the standard vitals. And if I miss the second alert and I try to complete the entire visit, it's going to let me know, okay, here are all of the procedures that were not completed and you're trying to move forward. Please enter a progress note with an explanation of why. I'll pause there. Do we have any questions coming in yet, Dan, that I should pause and answer?
Not yet. This partially completing a visit is important because then the PI can sign off for, other than writing a progress note, the PI can sign off for the visit. This usually most utilized at screenings when you won't complete the visit for several weeks sometimes after the visit occurred, but the PI can still provide oversight, and then you can come back. It'll let you know if it's partially complete versus in progress. One of the mistakes I made early on was not partially completing visits, just leaving them open in progress, and our PI had a hard time signing off initially, so that's important.
Mm-hmm. In the partially complete visits, they'll sit in a queue as incomplete visits until they're finalized. So there's no chance of the incomplete paper getting filed away and then forgotten. So it'll sit in a queue until it's ready to go.
Yeah, but again, guys, like there's a bit of a learning curve with this as with any tech. You can upload if you're not sure what you're doing, just have your PI write a progress note on paper and upload it. You can upload it, assign it to the visit level, and that's it. Your monitor is going to see it. So that way you have the oversight, it's documented, and there's no issues with any of that from a monitoring perspective.
Yeah, you can upload a paper progress note if you'd like, or you can always just click this icon within here and create and add an electronic progress note. So you can come in here and write out any information as needed. And then, of course, you can sign on progress notes electronically as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm. Now, I often get asked questions about what happens when you make a change to the data. Within a form, you can make changes. So if I put something crazy in here, it's a complete typo, it's going to flag me, this is outside of range. I can now go ahead and make that adjustment before the audit trail kicks in. The audit trail is triggered by the save and continue button here at the bottom. So if I did not leave a value for the blood pressure here and I go ahead and enter one in, I'm making a change to the data. But it's super simple. Instead of strike through, date, timestamp, all of that as you would have to do on paper and CRIO, you just select a reason why you're making a change, and then it'll be taken care of automatically for you.
And Chorus has a good question. I have a video uploading next week on Source. Does that 5 minutes she's talking about the vital signs start from the time you start the visit or from the time you click the date and time on the stamp? From the time you click the date and time on the initial, it will know for the second vital sign. So not the visit. You can open the visit whenever you want.
That's correct.
You can actually open the visit before the patient's even there.
Mm-hmm.
We do it not often, but we do it every now and then. And you can have multiple people working on the same visit. They just can't be in the same assessment.
Correct. Dan, you are a CRIO expert.
Well, getting there.
But yeah, working in multiple procedures is really important because You can have coordinators collecting the vitals, they're walking through collecting that history, and you have the investigator doing the physical exam. It allows for a much more efficient workflow if you can have people both working on data collection simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other examples. So urine pregnancy tests within clinical trials. The reason I included this is I wanted to show the type of logic that can be built into questions. So very common in trials are there questions like, if yes, skip to question 5. If no, skip to question 10. That's hard to keep track of. There's questions then that are left blank on the page, and mistakes commonly occur with that workflow. So instead, you can build in question logic into CRIO to say, okay, is this a woman of childbearing potential? If yes, I need to move forward with the urine pregnancy test. If no, they are not, I don't need to move forward. Those questions will be entirely disappeared and not even allow you to answer them incorrectly. So this is a type of logic that you can build into the questions as well. Now, if I say our subject, Dustin, is a woman of childbearing potential, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to move forward with collecting the UPT. In this specific study that I have built, this urine pregnancy test is an invoiceable procedure. What an invoiceable procedure means is that it's not included in the base visit level revenue. You actually have to count up and collect how many of these tests did occur, send them on an invoice to the CRO in order to get paid for that study. Dan, do you have a lot of invoiceable procedures within your trials currently, or?
We have X-rays, so I hate invoiceable procedures. I rather get them built into the budget. And one of the benefits of using our site network service with DSCS is Chris will do your budgets for you, and we try to limit those invoiceables because they are really annoying. I
Mhm,
actually have to do some today. I'm batching like 50 X-rays from over a year
mhm,
because I just didn't want to do it. And Creo does have an invoicing feature that's nice, but it's still I haven't programmed it for invoiceables yet. I've programmed the budget. We'll get to that,
mhm,
but I haven't programmed invoiceables yet in Creo. So I'm still like using the templates and then manually creating them. It's
mhm,
really is like a headache, but Creo does keep track of these things, and once you figure out how to use it, it's a lot easier from what I understand.
mhm. Yeah, we definitely got to get you set up with that. Um,
Yeah.
so easy that as soon as your team, your coordinators, if they mark something as completed in source, this is integrated with our financial solution to automatically capture any revenue or cost and have them up to date. And then you can simply just send this invoice with all of the UPTs at once, or X-rays in your example.
Yeah.
So if I'm walking through, I just hit yes, this was performed, automatically updating the finances for you.
Hmm.
Another example is a repeat test. If I get reimbursed for this again, I just click yes, automatically capturing the revenue that we've earned at the site as well.
Yeah. That'll be the next phase of my progress.
Perfect. We'll have a conversation next week about it. um, I also wanted to show how you can set permissions in Source. So if I jump to this physical exam here, you can limit certain procedures to roles, such as investigators. I can say only investigators can complete the physical. I could narrow this down to a specific individual, such as only Dr. Smith can complete this physical. Or you can even take that one step further and you can tie it to delegated duties. So we have an electronic delegation log built into CRIO in which only individuals who are assigned a physical exam duty and have been signed off on that duty would be able to edit this part of the source. So again, sites have full control. They're able to ensure that the correct individuals are completing the visit procedures as necessary.
Yeah, that part's important. It will let you, like, let's say, because my PI, he oftentimes will do the physical and he's got his laptop in the other room. So he'll do it. It'll let me, using my profile, put what time he did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he will go when he's done and assess, like, was it normal, abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
So it does allow some flexibility in that. um, Zainab asked, can Creo work with external vendors from the sponsor CRO such as Central Lab?
We can work with some external vendors for the specific example, such as Central Labs. Depending on what vendor you're receiving those labs from, you can save them as a PDF, upload into the CRIO system, and then you have tools to annotate and sign that lab report, which I can show you as well. Or another route is if you're receiving these documents electronically, we can give you a specific email address and workflow to send them all into the CRIO system so that you don't even have to upload them yourself. So you're probably working with many different vendors coming from all over different studies. So we kind of have a couple different
Wait,
options
so you can just forward like a lab result
into
to an
CRIO.
email address?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that part.
All right,
All
we have
right.
2 agenda items for next week.
Well,
Thank you.
our coordinators right now, what they do, we get lab results every day now. So
Mhm.
they'll print it out, have our PI sign it, and then upload them once he's signed them to the appropriate subject visit. And then we're still keeping our original labs, but I understand when they're e-signed in CRIO, you can actually shred the original, but we don't. We're afraid, so we keep them.
Mhm. Okay, I'll show you how to set up that
Okay.
email
Yeah,
connection.
coordinators would love you. What is patient position? Is it in relation when the subject enrolled in the trial the first time? No, that's when they're doing their vitals, Prasad.
Mhm.
That's sometimes they have to be standing, sitting. Uh, yeah.
Correct. The protocol have very specific instructions of how all the data points are collected.
Stay tuned for the source going through a source document video next week, guys.
Um, okay. Also, want to show you with the physical, we make it as easy as possible for the investigators to complete the physical. They can actually click normal and toggle between all of the answer choices right away. And then if they mark any values off as abnormal, this text box appears for that investigator to enter in further comments.
This is the part where my PI or sub I does.
Mhm.
The sub I likes Creo a lot, so he'll log in and do it. Like he'll put the time. When the PI does it, I gotta go in and put the time for him, and then he goes back later and puts normal, abnormal, all that stuff. We actually have a good question here from Kelvin. Can Creo incorporate and delineate standard of care in cancer research budget grids into the source?
It depends on how the study is structured. We certainly do have some cancer and oncology clients that are running their studies within CRIO. So it depends. Again, eSource is mostly used to eliminate data collection from paper source. I know a lot of oncology institutions fully use their EMR for data collection. If they do use their EMR, CRIO at this point in time might not be the best use case. However, I also want to point out that we will be developing EMR integrations as well. So,
Yeah.
again, not a direct answer. It really depends on the type of study and how this organization is structured. But we have more to come in a few
Well,
weeks.
I guess they're in this case, Calvin's asking from the perspective of tracking financials. So, I mean, you could create the Creo source. So you could upload. What I would do is upload all the EMRs, and like Mia said, they're going to work on ways to integrate with different EMR vendors. But for now, upload the EMRs into Creo, and then just create the source for each visit, like just what the study needs,
Mhm.
and then click that these things were done. And at the end, I would write a note to file, please see EMRs. That way, you can track the financials.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good one. Mhm.
Or you can even do the visit. I think you can just put like visit was done, because when we use our financials, as long as a visit was done, if you program your study budget to it, it'll know that the visit was done. So I would even make it easier. Like, did visit occur? Yes or no? Write a note that please see EMRs uploaded and
Mhm.
e-signed, and then the system will track that that visit occurred.
Yeah, that's correct. I see Rod has the same question about he didn't know if labs could be sent directly to the CRIO. Okay, Rod will be
Yeah, Katie, Daisy, Desiree, if you're watching, I don't know, you should be at work in 19 minutes, but they're probably not watching, they're driving. But I will tell them about this. A lot of people didn't know about that.
absolutely. Um, okay. In addition to automating invoiceables, CRIO, you can also automate payables. Dan, do you track any costs to investigators, sub-Is, or outside vendors? Maybe a vendor for the X-ray? Do you have to pay out?
No, I don't track. Yeah, I haven't used payables. I just wait on them to invoice me. So I
Okay.
don't track. I won't proactively pay. And our PIs and sub-Is are very easy to pay them. It's just a straight
Mhm.
percentage of what we earn from the gross. So it's really easy for that.
Got it. Any of those payables that need to be automated can be set up within CRIO. It can be based off of the visit. So if Dr. Smith is earning X dollar amount or X percentage for every visit, that can be automatically tracked, or you can even narrow it down further to specific procedures. So maybe in this study, I have multiple investigators who could work on the study. Investigators, sub-Is, I actually want to pay based on who did the physical exam. All I have to do is collect the information of who completed it, and then it'll check.
Gotcha. A, B, and C. And that's separate because you're already like in the physical exam right above it, right? You're already that assessment's already attributed to someone. So in the physical exam payable, is that just for the site or the CRA see that too?
It's just for the site, so this is to trigger the finances. It's just for their workflow. Now, the
Okay.
CRAs, when they jump in to do remote monitoring, they'll see that a question was performed to track the finances. But again, this doesn't have anything to do with the CRF fields.
Okay, okay. I see. Yeah, I didn't know about that either. That could be something good for like we're eventually gonna consider bonuses for our coordinators.
Hmm.
You could probably program a bonus in there. Who did the visit? Which CRC did the visit? And
Correct.
mhm.
And we have reports available as well to track visits completed by CRCs.
See, I learn something new every day, guys.
That's what I'm here for. Also touch on the ConMed and adverse event logs. These are what we call multi-record logs, so they do carry across from one visit to another. So I've clearly entered in these medications at a previous visit. It is going to appear at each visit now to ensure that I'm reviewing it. When I was on site and the ConMed log was a separate paper log, it's just very easy to forget to review it at each visit. So this ensures that the site will. You can jump in, you can see all the information about the medications here. You can make any changes, adjustments as needed. You could add a new medication, but if there's no changes, of course, you can mark that within CRIO.
Hmm. I had a question about this email with the labs.
Mhm.
So does it know? Does it is it a unique email for every study, or it'll just upload it at the site level, and then you have to figure out where it goes?
It'll upload at the site level, and then you would attach it to the appropriate subject and visit.
Okay. Ooh, any plans for incorporating ePros?
Yes, we have some ePro partner vendors that we integrate with. That's mostly for our sponsor and CRO offerings, which I can get into more detail later. But we do have a fully integrated EDC that we can integrate with ePro vendors as well.
Okay, gotcha.
Mhm. Also mentioned that the adverse event log works in similar fashion to ConMed. So this is obviously a running list of any AEs that the patient has reported. I can jump in here, review all of the information, of course, make any edits as needed. Hopefully not have to add a new adverse event. And then the last procedure that I built in that I wanted to show today is this with its IP return and compliance, how you can automate calculations within CRIO. So if I'm running through the IP, did the subject return medication? Yes, they did. Now, how many capsules were dispensed at the last visit? Let's say they dispensed 80 to the patient, whereas how many were returned? They returned 20 of the capsules. How many were dropped or lost? Let's say the patient lost 2, then it's going to go ahead and automatically calculate for me how many the patient did take.
Uh,
But what is the target number of capsules they should have taken? They were supposed to take all 80 that was dispensed. With that, it'll do the calculation. It'll recognize that this is below 80% IP compliance, which is typically the standard. And then because it's below 80%, it's then going to trigger a follow-up question for the site to ensure that the patient was re-educated.
I see. What was the patient's percentage compliance? So it will know based on how you program it what the protocol stated about target compliance.
Exactly. That's correct. Mhm.
Okay.
All right. Now, before I complete this visit, I'll pause there in case there's any additional
Oh
questions.
yeah, there is one regarding AEs. So can can you program the CTCAE version, so this is for oncology, for the adverse event tab. Some studies are still using CTCAE version 4.
I am not personally familiar with the CTCAE version. However, the ConMed log is fully customizable. So yes, it can be tailored to the specific questions, answer choices that need to be collected. And that can be
Uh-huh.
configured per the site and for each study.
What about definition of AE terms? Because I know this we're getting a bit sidetracked, but
Mhm.
for the CRO stuff that we can maybe touch on just a little bit at the end. Does CRIO have a glossary of like AE definitions, or sites have to do that?
We don't have a glossary specifically, but again, that can be built in the adverse event form in the instructions. That's what certain.
Okay.
Mhm. And dependent on the AE and the answer selected, it can then trigger follow-up steps. So if you mark that it was a serious adverse event, it's going to have different follow-up steps rather than if it's non-serious.
Or a AE of special interest, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, as I complete this visit, this is what the source will look like. Again, it's electronic. Your teams, your sites, your monitors can sign in from anywhere, review the CRIO data. It doesn't matter if they're on the site, at home, or they're traveling. You'll be able to jump in here. You can review all of the procedures or forms that were collected for the study. You can see all of the data values and the time and date stamp of who collected it and when. If your site and you notice something doesn't look correct, I recorded a systolic blood pressure of 300, you can come in here and you can talk internally with your colleagues. So I can tag my colleague Stephanie here. We can talk back and forth internally on this data point until it's resolved. So this eliminates the need for sticky notes, grabbing your site director, your investigator in person, sending them an email, anything like that.
Yeah, no. I do some QA functions at my site, but I really am Casey, who's been with us forever at our other site. She lives in California. We're in Arizona, and we're gonna start having her do the QA. But this is a feature for QA people too. Like when they come in, hey, you know what? Let's tag the CRC here, explain further, and you can do this remotely, which is awesome because you don't have to be on site to do this.
Mm-hmm. And we've already discussed progress notes could be entered into source. Progress notes can be signed on electronically. And if I scroll to the bottom of the visit, you'll notice that I completed this visit 142 days outside of window. It's going to ask me to enter a progress note of why I did that. Of course, this is my demo fake environment. But it can also track investigator sign off. So if your investigators do sign electronically in visits to show the oversight, you can turn this on and then sign. And then again, exactly for that QA, you have quality assurance, quality review process of someone ensuring the data is accurate. You can mark that within CRIO and keep track of it across all of your studies.
Yep, and that the monitors won't see that part, the QA, but the internally, like the site owner, site director can see that it was done. So if you hire a QA person, that's how you're keeping track of whether it was done or not.
Yes, and if you do choose to give monitors access so that they can review your source data and your documents remotely, the data will be in the participant name so that they only have access to the information necessary.
Yes, monitors will not, they're external users, they will not see comments internally.
Mm-hmm.
Something to really, really understand.
Yes, absolutely. Now, with the eSource here, there's two other components that I want to mention that we've recently released in the industry. The first one is medical record integration. So, Dan, I'm sure you're very familiar with the process. If you need records from another practice, another physician, you're faxing that medical record request form, or you're calling a practice and asking for the records. You probably have to wait sometimes days, weeks to get those records back. What time frame do you typically work on for those?
If you're lucky, I mean, there's places where we never get them back.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Three attempts, 3 phone calls, guys, document, and that's it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's the 3 attempts of a manual workflow for medical records. We want to eliminate that process for our client sites. So we have built an integration to be able to pull medical records from 90% of systems within the US. So very simple process. You'd be able to enter in your patient information, request their records, and they would literally appear within the CRIO environment within minutes for you to be able to review and sign off on. So hopefully saving a lot of time
Wow.
and effort instead
Is
of having.
this out right now, available?
It is in a beta version being tested with some of our
Ah,
clients right now. It
no
will,
wonder we haven't used it yet.
yes, it should be finally released, final version next month in July.
So what info do you put? The page, you don't need social, right?
No, you need the patient's name and address.
I see. And then how do they know they signed a HIPAA? They can see do the site have to use the e-consent for this to work?
You can use the e-consent in order to execute that medical record release form, or you can execute the medical record release form as you normally would on paper and scan and upload that. But within that medical record release form, we'll give a snippet of language to include so that you can request the records directly through CRIO. And once they sign that release form, then you can request the records and get access to them in within minutes.
Wow, yeah, that's cool.
So that
Very
final
cool.
version will be coming out in July. Some of our clients are testing it and providing feedback on it right now. And then the
Wow.
other solution that I wanted to mention, Dan, you kind of already spoke about our sponsor and CRO offerings within the industry, which you have some familiarity with. This e-source that we're taking a look at here today is fully integrated with our EDC solution. So we have a combined e-source EDC solution that we have available on the markets. We're working directly with sponsors and CROs with this solution. It's vastly different from how the industry has worked for the past 15 years, in which sites collect source data, they transcribe the source data at a later point in time into an EDC platform. Instead, with CRIO solution, this e-source data that's collected electronically is automatically integrated to our EDC solution for the CRO to go ahead and jump in, review, query, medical code block, all the tools that they need on their end. Why is that important? Sites don't have to transcribe data. You collect it once electronically in eSource. You never have to enter it in again to another EDC platform. So very efficient on the site end. And then on the CRO end, they don't have to source data verify. They don't have to take a paper chart and say, okay, these values match what was actually entered into the EDC, make sure there was not transcription errors. So it's really allowing for efficiencies on both end. So that's the CRO sponsors facing solution that Dan had mentioned earlier.
Hadi says this is amazing. He's referring to that EMR, and I agree.
Yes.
That could be a game changer for us.
I had
I can't wait.
you on. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, if that's all you need, and you have some way to prove that the authorization to release records was signed, which most of the time now they're embedded in the ICF. That's great.
Do you see a question about if the patient subject changes address during the investigational period?
Oh yeah, what happens if the patient subject changes the address during the investigational period? There's a subject database that CRIO has as part. It's just all integrated together. That's what I like about CRIO. You have a database. When I started research, I had to buy like a thing from Staples, like an address book, and that was my patient database. Now you have it in your eSource with your eReg, with your CTMS, with your financial, everything's connected. And then you can put patients, even if you don't have a study for them, you can put patients in this database, and then you could pre-screen them. And I haven't even started using the recruitment functionality of CRIO yet.
And if this question is referring to the medical record integration, Stephanie, my colleague, put in the chat, you can add in multiple addresses. So sometimes we have the question, okay, I have a participant who lives in Vermont, but they're a snowbird and they spend their winters in Florida. Can we pull records from both areas? Yes, absolutely. All right. Now, again, we only covered the eSource solution today to talk about how the data can be collected electronically to save sites time, reduce some of the burden on their end, as well as ensure quality upfront. We do already work with thousands of sites across the world. If you or yourself are interested in learning anything about CRIO, you want to take a look at the other solutions. We also have e-consent, e-reg, and a full site CTMS, always feel free to reach out to us. You can DM me directly. Happy to set up additional time with anyone who would like to learn more about what we're offering in the industry.
Yeah, look, guys, like there's so many features. There's not enough time in 1 hour. But look,
Mm-hmm.
if you see on the screen, you get studies. So that's your active studies you've got, or even like upcoming studies. Subjects is what I was talking about with that database. The
Mm-hmm.
schedule shows you kind of what's on the radar for upcoming visits. Tasks, which I actually don't use this feature. Files, which is all the files. So I'm assuming that's where the labs will get
Correct.
forwarded to. Organization, this is where you add new users, add monitors,
Mm-hmm.
move people around, assign them to different studies. So you don't, if you have like a lot of studies, you as the site director, whatever the owner, you can choose like, okay, this CRC doesn't need access to this study. So I'm only going to give them access to the studies they need access to. And then same thing with monitors. They're called external users. Recruitment is something that we're going to start messing with soon once we get a busier volume of patients. Financials, I'm using to track what we're owed.
Mm-hmm.
I have to incorporate invoiceables in there, but basically like study visits, I have that's automated. So if a visit occurs, that's what I was telling Calvin about earlier. Um, with the EMRs that you already have, just put that the visit occurred and then put a note, see EMRs that are uploaded. And then boom, you get that there. That'll track the visits. eReg, we use it on a daily basis. And then the reports, which kind of, if you're a busier site, it keeps you, like it gives you milestones. How are you doing on enrollment and things like that? And then that question mark, that's like a robust um, area to find information, like SOPs, right? We incorporated e-consent, so I had to update my SOPs, and I found CRIO already made SOPs for us. So you just go in
Okay.
there, customize them for yourself. This is where you can get the e-source made. This is where that live chat is like really fast.
Yeah, in this help center, we have all of the resources our clients need to get set up successfully. So, training resources, documentations, the SOP guidance that you mentioned, validation documents. Um, and then we also have um, this live chat service built into CRIO. So, this is staffed by real people. It is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you ever have a question or you need support from our team, you'll be able to jump in here, talk directly with our team, get support right away. So we do really prioritize our customers and ensuring that they're getting answers to their questions and pressing needs very quickly.
Um,
And I thought I was friends with this person until Lion Pizza.
I used to think this live chat, it was so good. Like 2019, my other site would shut down, Global Clinical Trials back in Irvine, in Costa Mesa. I used to think this was Raymond replying back to me.
Oh my gosh.
That's I thought Raymond was using like someone else's username, but they actually have like the
Maybe in
people
the
actually
early days
reply
it was
back.
Raymond. You never know.
Yeah, I was always wondering. Okay, so it would be awesome if you could include a demo of the e-consent feature for CRIO and future demos. It's a bit tough to get buy-in from AMCs with local consent SOPs. We just started using. I actually got a text that there's a patient that showed up at the site, but like we started using e-consent, and it's actually really cool because one of our studies is 39 pages e-consent, right? So like we just do it on CRIO now, and they get a copy, and the triggers the coordinator to sign, triggers the PI to sign. Um, yeah. So we're gonna get into that, and then the financials and regulatory. Those are all like another like 1 hour videos each. So there's plenty more to come. That's a funny chat, guys. I just realized what you're doing. All right. Anything else?
I don't think so. If anyone's interested in learning more about CRIO, myself, Kelvin, had questions around e-consent, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to show you that e-consent solution directly. We can spend some time together going through CRIO.
You know what you should incorporate? This chat got me thinking now. Hey, chat, please Uber Eats me Starbucks. We'll pay for it. My site owner will pay for it. Or patient snacks, or Dry
An
ice. That would be
invoice
cool.
directly from CRIO, and you're gonna get an invoice, and it's gonna be like Dunkin' Donuts, iced coffee, Dunkin' Donuts,
Hey, you know what?
donuts.
Maybe it's a joke, but maybe there's something there.
All right, I'll have to bring that one up to Ray. We will
Bring
be
it up to Ray.
delivering food and drinks shortly through the
That would
CRIO.
be cool because I gotta go to Subway later today, buy a sandwich for a patient, and probably get dry ice as well.
Of course.
And how cool would that be? Okay, like send me a Uber Eats for this, and then boom, it's done.
I mean, I'm not arguing against you. I'm all for that as well.
Yeah. Well, that's for another day and time. But thank you so much, Mia, for coming on and doing this and sharing some info on CRIO. I think it's amazing. And in my defense, I haven't used other e-source that are out right now. I've used sponsor mandated ones, and I hated them. So
Mhm.
I mean, there are probably other good ones out there too, but CRIO is the one that works for me, and it's fairly simple. Coordinators like it, and look at all the features they have, and they keep innovating. So, and the CEO is a former site owner.
Correct. Hmm.
That's important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Dan. We're lucky to
Thank you,
continue to partner with you. So certainly appreciate it.
everybody. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Go
Absolutely.
follow Mia. Her LinkedIn's underneath. Take care. Bye bye.